You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
Time to sharpen those swords. You're listening to Sabres Semantics, a hard-hitting interview and discussion show featuring players, alumni, media, and all others who have or still cover the NHL's Buffalo Sabres. With interesting stories from the past and current objective analysis, this show is sure to provide an entertaining and unique perspective for both Sabres and hockey fans alike.
Oh, brother, we are not worthy!
Exclusively on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Now, here's your host of Sabres Semantics, Brandon Caputo.
Welcome into another episode of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, proudly brought to you by J&L Flooring. If you think you can get a better deal anywhere else, you don't know Jack, contact our Niagara Falls location to begin your quality flooring project today. Our first episode of 2024. Brandon Caputo and Austin Broder with you. Guys, if you're enjoying the video version of the podcast, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, smash that bell for all updates on video versions of our podcast that get released here on the network. And if you're listening to us today in on-demand audio, thank you very much for doing so. Give us some love on whatever audio platform you're listening to us right now. As far as today's show goes, we're going to discuss basically just first half of the season for the Sabres, what's been going on, opinions on Don Granato, Kevin Adams. We've got some fan polls as well. Austin's got some analytics for us to talk about. We'll talk about the state of the roster, some transactions, some injuries, and preview the next key stretch of games because there are a lot of winnable games for the Sabres upcoming here. So with that said, we'll start off, though, by giving a plug to Fubo TV. They broadcast every single Sabres game here in Southern Ontario, specifically the Niagara region. So if you guys are interested in watching Sabres games here locally, Fubo TV and our exclusive link is in the description below of this video, so you can click on that for the best price you're going to get to watch Sabres games on Fubo TV here in Canada. So they are a proud sponsor here of the Sabres Semantics on the Armchair GM Sports Network. And as well, if you guys are looking to catch some free Sabres games, Niagara Golf Vacations is another sponsor of ours, and they are offering free Sabres tickets. So all you got to do is go down to the Niagara Golf Lounge, located in the Best Western Carencroft Hotel in Niagara Falls. You simply spend a minimum of $50, and you'll receive entry to win some Sabres tickets if you guys are interested in getting down to KeyBank Center before the end of the year. So again, we haven't recorded, I believe, since mid-December. So our first episode here of 2024 on the podcast, and I know you've got a lot to say, but once again, it's like the thumbnail of this show is going to say, New Year, same Sabres, because they still have not won back-to-back games since late October.
Yeah, and I'm just going to call back to myself. I ended last episode saying I was going to try to be more positive for the rest of the year, and I'm probably going to look like an idiot the next time we record. Well, I look like an idiot because there's not a whole lot to be positive about. New Year, same Sabres, like you said. Actually, New Year, worse Sabres. It has not been good. Like you just said, the fact that, Granato missed 2 games, Columbus, Ottawa. They did win the Columbus game, but it went to overtime. You had to come back and win that game even again. I don't like saying this because we're far past the point where you outplayed this team. Because they did outplay Columbus, and they did, for the most part, outplay Ottawa. But outplaying your opponent doesn't matter because that's not how you – that is how you win hockey games, but that's not – it doesn't always translate. You need to actually win games because there was expectations on the Sabres this year. So the last 2 games, if Appert would have won that Ottawa game, Seth Appert, he filled in for Granato, credit to him, because Rochester was playing while he was up here, and I'm sure, he probably wanted to be down there with his team because that's what you want as the head coach. But if he would have won that Ottawa game, he would have won back-to-back games, his first 2 games, something that Granato's only done once this year. That's just the type of season that it's been for the Sabres. And, I'm sure we'll later in the show, we're going to get into, overall thoughts on the coaching staff in the front office, because I think that is a really good place to start because they're no longer in the goodwill of the fan base anymore. It's getting ugly again, justifiably so. Whether the players want to hear it or not, they are getting booed regularly. For the most part, it's deserved. I know what people want to say. I think it was Oposa who said, it was 12 years and we haven't been here for that full 12 years, but we understand the frustration. Well, we're not booing because of the last 12 years. We're booing because for the first time in a long time, you've had expectations and you have done nothing but fall flat on your face all year. That is every level of the organization. That is the players. That is the coaching staff. That is the front office. Your first year with expectations and you failed miserably. Now, there is a small chance that this turns around, but let's face it. I don't know. You look me in the eyes and tell me that you feel confident the Sabres are going to beat Montreal. You can't do it. You can't look me in the face and be 100% confident that that's going to happen.
They already lost to them.
That's what I mean. Like that's the type of season that it's become for the Sabres, and we can talk about if it's justifiable or not. But when you were 1 point short of the playoffs last year, yeah, you have a young core that you've identified. You are expected to make a step, make that next jump. Different scenarios, different situations Detroit has spent in free agents, but Detroit is making, a run at this. And I'm not saying like that they're going to make it, but they're at least trying. Their players that are expected to play well are playing well in Detroit. The players that are expected to play well in Buffalo aren't. And there's a few, like Jack Quinn looks very good, which is awesome because they need him. JJ Peterka is having a relatively nice year. Casey Middlestad is having just an unbelievable year that doesn't get talked about because there's so much negativity around this team. But your Dylan Cousins, your Alex Tuck, your Tage Thompsons, your Jeff Skinner, who is having a nice offensive season, they're falling short of their expectations. And when your core is falling short of Rasmus Dahlin, he's falling tremendously short of his expectations. Owen Power, I still think he's a lot better than what people are giving him credit for. But again, he got a big contract, so the expectations are there on him now. Like, it's just been a monumental failure from top to bottom right now through 38 games.
And I've heard some of the other Sabres media around talking about, they want to get back to last year, but last year wasn't good enough. They didn't make the playoffs. I mean, last year there were some positive steps, but it wasn't like last year they were, a second-round playoff team. Like, there still was a 10-game losing streak in there, and they still had to make up some ground. So, like, how much do you want to take from last year? Because, yeah, they made strides, but they still weren't a playoff team.
Yeah, but last year they were at least a formidable offensive threat. This year they're not.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, last year they fell short, but last year there wasn't exactly the expectations of them to make it. So in terms of getting back to last year, I think it's got to be last year's playing style, and then you got to hope that, something that we can get into, like, they finally got rid of the 3 goalies, which is good, but just seems like Devin Levi's having an up and down year, which is expected from a rookie goalie. Luukkonen's having an up and down year, which has pretty much been his MO his entire career. But whenever a goalie finally gets named the starter in Buffalo, they fall apart. So I would like that to stop. The defense pairs have not worked. It finally seems like maybe they're going to try and change that up, which is good. Because the defense, you signed Clifton and Johnson, who are not world beaters by any stretch of the means, but they should have improved your defensive depth a little bit. They haven't. Your forward group, believe it or not, now that they're fully healthy, I actually don't mind the forward group that they have. They still need to perform. They haven't performed that well, but like I do like the construction of their first 3 lines that they have. So maybe, just maybe, they have a chance at turning things around here. But yeah, like getting back to last year, at least they were, their good players were performing and they were scoring goals. Right now, they're not scoring goals. You know what? I understand they wanted to make a commitment to defense. The commitment to defense hasn't worked. So maybe go out all out on offense and at least try and win games 6-5 because let's face it, they're not a cup contender. So I understand you have to play defense to win a cup. Buffalo's not winning a cup this year. They're probably not winning a cup next year. The expectation was playoffs. Do whatever you can to make the playoffs. And then once you get that playoff experience, start working to be that cup contender. We just want playoffs. Like,
it's sad to say, but like that's where we're at right now. 13 years of that. So it's just, again, nobody's expecting this team, like you said, to win the Stanley Cup here. But if they can make positive strides forward, which they did last year, and I think that was why everybody was so optimistic about last year, even though they missed out in the playoffs, it was refreshing to finally have a team that was playing meaningful games in April because that's basically what they've been talking about ever since Darcy Regier had that classic quote where he said, you're going to go through years of suffering. And I don't even think that Darcy knew into the future that was going to be 13 years worth of this. But last year, it didn't feel like the 12 or 11 years previous to that. You know what I mean? So I think that's where you take some positives and try to compartmentalize what last year was. So I understand the point of view from those people that say, like, yeah, they didn't do anything. Well, okay, like, technically they didn't make the playoffs, but, you know, when you're 1 point out of a playoff spot, I mean, for a franchise that hasn't been there in 12 years, you take it.
To me, and that's where, like, my frustration was, I don't know the general consensus among Sabres fans, but I think that's where my frustration is a little different. I am not frustrated about the previous, 12 years. Or I guess scratch last. Well, yeah, because last year they didn't make the playoffs. I'm not disappointed about the previous 12 years. I'm disappointed about the fact that you finally have expectations and you've just fallen flat on your face. Now, I will say in the summer, I gave Adams the benefit of the doubt. I said I liked the 2 moves that he made. He shored up his defense. He's banking on internal improvement. I also was cautious by saying, Tuck, Thompson, and Cousins are not all going to have career years again because you can't expect that too. But I did expect, Middlestat, who's playing well again, Peterka, who's playing well again, Skinner's still playing well, Quinn back playing well, Benson is playing really well, Greenway has taken that next step. I expected that to kind of help offset it. Unfortunately for the top guys on the Sabres, not only are they not having career years, they've actually regressed. To me, that is the biggest problem. You can't look me in the face and tell me that you're disappointed with Middlestat, Greenway, Benson, Peterka, or Quinn, because you shouldn't be. They were playing well. Tage had an injury. Tuck had an injury. I understand that. That is the issue right now, is those guys aren't performing. Now, do I think it's a long-term issue? No, I think these guys are eventually, like, they're going to snap out of it, and they're better than they're playing now. But therein lies the problem, is your big guys are not playing well. And on top of that, your defense still hasn't improved. Like, last year we were okay with the bad defense because the big guys were scoring every night. The big guys aren't scoring every night. The defense still hasn't improved. That's why you're seeing the team that you're seeing right now. Like, the big guys need to step up. I do think the coaching staff plays a big part in this because, as was it after the Toronto game? I think Granato finally said, we need to get back to playing the style that we played last year. I was like, yeah, probably shouldn't have taken you 35 games to figure that out, but it did for whatever reason. And then they proceeded to, while the results weren't there, they played well against Toronto. They played well against the Rangers, even though they lost. Like, they went on a good little stretch. The Boston game was a bit of a disaster, but they played well for a couple games. The Ottawa game, Tage scored. He was the only one that showed up on the score sheet. The Columbus game, Jack Quinn was a big part of that. Jeff Skinner scored the overtime winner. Like, the flashes are there. There's just no consistency from this team whatsoever. And to me, that's where the coaching staff has to come into question, because it's their job to have the team ready.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the last stretch of games, and I got it up on the video version for you guys following along. If not, if you're listening in audio, you can look it up yourself. Like, their games in December since the last time we recorded are like just a microcosm of what you've been talking about. They lost to Colorado, then they go out and beat Vegas, then they lose to Arizona, lose to Columbus, like, to get destroyed by Columbus, give up 9 goals. Then they come back and beat the Leafs and score 9. And you're just like, okay, what is this team? And then, I mean, Samsonov played a big factor into that for Toronto, who's now been waived. But then they go and lose. They almost won back-to-back games there. They lost the overtime game against the Rangers, which was a heartbreaker, just for the fact that they would have finally won back-to-back games. Then they go and lose 4-1 to Boston, continue to struggle against them. And then they beat Columbus, took them, extra time to do that. But then you thought, okay, here's a good stretch of games here starting New Year's Eve against Ottawa. And you go up there against a team that just had a coaching change and has been struggling mightily this year, and you lose 5-1 to the Senators. So, this whole stretch of games that I have up on the screen right now is just, you could take a snapshot, and that's a Sabre season right there. A 9-goal win, a 9-goal loss, and no back-to-back wins, and some really tough losses in there.
Yeah, and like I said, every level of this organization has failed. We kind of just talked about the players, but I guess we could talk about the other parts, like the coaching staff in the front office. Like, to me, I can't say just as much to blame, because at the end of the day, when your players perform, the coach looks good and all that stuff. But the coaching staff, Adams, the GM and everything like that, your power play has been abysmal for a calendar year. It's not just this season. It has been abysmal since last January. when teams just said, you know what, we're not going to let Tage Thompson tee off on us. Because, yeah, that's the Sabres power play strategy. Their penalty kill at the beginning of the year was great, but that's because you had guys like Comrie, Luukkonen, and Levi making big saves on the penalty kill. That is not sustainable on the penalty kill. You cannot give up quality chances and just expect your goalie to bail you out. You can for some of it, but you cannot expect that to be your season-long penalty kill strategies. You know what? The goalies will bail us out. Their specialty teams is abysmal. That's on the coaching staff because that's not a talent issue. Their power play is not bad because of a talent issue. Their power play is atrocious because the strategy is terrible. In that Boston game, Brad Marchand had a 4-minute double minor. The Sabres generated one shot on it, I think.
And even then, like, I want to bring that up, like Marchand running around doing dumb stuff like he's always done, and there's no response to it. Like, again, I'm not asking for somebody to go out there and be a Rob Ray and just, fight every game, but when, especially, these teams that are rival teams, and you have guys like Marchand who are notorious for doing this stuff, like, you have to nip that in the butt. You have to let them know that that's not going to be acceptable. I don't care what the last 12 years have been of you running around on this team, but this is a different team. This is a new year. And you got to let them know that this stuff's not going to fly.
Yeah, and like as much as I would like to agree with you, right now with the way the Sabres season's going, I guess you can look at it one of two ways. If you're actually serious about making the playoffs, you make him pay on the score sheet, but you can't because your power play sucks. Or you give up on the season and you say, you know what? Yeah, Greenway, Samuelson, I guess Tuck, because he's done it a couple times this year. Someone go take a run at him, but like. I think that's kind of the problem, and we've talked about it a little bit before, but the conversations that you and I have been having from the top to the bottom of this team, there does not seem to be an identity, and to me, that's where these problems lie. Like,
do you think they have too many of the same players that do the same thing?
I've heard that before, and that's kind of been like what TNT said the problem with the Sabres was during that Bruins game, and sure, maybe the same style of player, I guess, but when you look at it, like. Tage is a big skilled guy. Skinner is a guy who thrives at the net front. That's where he scores. Tuck is a good transition, modern day power forward with skill. Cousins is supposed to be that, reliable two-way forward. Quinn is a really responsible two-way forward with an elite shot. Paterka is a speedy winger. Benson, Middlestat, Greenway, like Middlestat and Benson thrive on the wall. They thrive through that cycle game. Like to me, like maybe too much of their stars are similar. Too similar, I guess. Maybe I don't know. To me, truly the issue with the Sabres team is there is no rhyme or reason behind anything that they do. And I talk about it. The microcosm for me of that is the power play. I watch the World Juniors and Team Sweden, for example, their power play, they move the puck with intent. They move the puck with the intent to create a quality chance or to get a shot so that the guy at the net front can either screen the goalie, tip the guy, or get a rebound, or that, you know what I mean? Like there's with the Sabres, the 5-on-3 that they've had, the 4-minute double minor that they had against the Bruins was a perfect example. They do not move the puck with any intention of creating a shot. I forget who it was on Twitter, but he posted a screenshot of the Sabres in the 5-on-3 in that game. I could have defended that by myself because all 5 guys were standing still and 2 were at the front of the net. There is no strategy.
No urgency.
No, like there's no urgency or intent with their puck movement. There's no setup. It's basically hit the guy at the point, so Dahlin or Power, depending on what unit's out there. Pass the puck a couple times, hopefully get Tage for a one-timer. You know what? Teams can key on that. And no disrespect to Tage, he's got a fantastic shot. You can't score if you have to shoot it will go in once in a while, but you can't be relied on to score when you have to shoot the puck through 3 guys plus a goalie. Every team knows what the Sabres are going to do with the puck on the power play. I'll scratch that. Even at even strength, these teams know what the Sabres are going to do. Their breakout is atrocious. They have all 3 forwards standing at the opponent's blue line, stationary, not moving. The defense skate the puck up, flip the puck to those forwards, and expect them to enter the zone. You cannot enter the zone from a standstill and hope to generate a shot. Last year, they generated a ton of shots off the rush. This year, they don't. That, to me, is the biggest issue right there. This team is this might be where people say they're built too similarly. They have too much of the same player because, yeah, all 3 of your lines should not rely solely on the rush to score. But you know what? If that's what works for the roster that you have and you're not going to make any changes, you better tailor your system to fit your roster. Or you better make some sweeping changes. But guess what? It's way easier to just tailor your system to the team rather than tailor your team to the system. There's no identity, and that to me is on the coaches and on the GM, not the players. The players need to play better. The players need to show up consistently with effort and everything like that. But the fact that there is no identity on this team, is solely on the construction and the way that this team is told to play.
And I mean, you can say practice too. Like it's obviously a philosophy on
But
how
they
they
haven't even
practice.
practiced the last month because their schedule's
Yeah.
been so busy, which I think is a bogus excuse too. Like you do have morning skates and things like that, but like the coach does not change his things until he's literally forced to or it's too late. Like the defense pair should have been changed a while ago, and then you change them on a random, Wednesday in January, and you're like, I didn't like the way it looked last game. It's like, do you not evaluate that after every game? Because your top pair of Samuelson and Dahlin haven't worked for about 2 months.
No, I agree. Before we hit the break, because that was a long discussion there, but I think it was needed because again, we talked about before the show what we were going to talk about, and again, we can talk about the upcoming games and things like that, but like you mentioned, I think there's a bigger picture here that we just discussed that needed to be addressed because this people are losing interest in this team because they're continuing to do the same thing and expecting a different result. And that's what we've been seeing for the last month or 2 months, where they haven't been able to string back-to-back wins, where they have a great performance and then terrible performances. But I think it's just something that we have to bring up because, I mean, the upcoming stretch of games, yeah, it's winnable games, but I mean, we just saw what they did against Ottawa, and it's hard to put faith in this team right now because you never know what you're going to get on a nightly basis.
Yeah, no, like I said, to me, not even the big picture is what matters because it's a micro. Like their current games have been a microcosm of the big picture. Unfortunately, I don't see any drastic changes coming, so this is kind of what we have to deal with for the rest of the year, which sucks. Like I told you before the show, like I'm starting to lose interest in just watching NHL hockey, which sucks because I've watched NHL hockey my entire life. But like, come on, Adams, Granato, players, like somebody at some level has to do something. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So I guess just
yeah. There have been some transactions. We'll quickly touch on that. You mentioned a little bit there. They finally sent Eric Comrie down. They put him on waivers, and to nobody's surprise, he didn't get claimed by anybody. So they're finally not running with the 3 goalies. I'm fine with UPL and Levi getting the bulk of the starts here. There was no reason to have Comrie, especially when he was clearly, the worst of the 3, and he was the easiest to put on waivers. He didn't get claimed. I don't know if Adams thought that 30 teams were going to be knocking down the door to pick up Eric Comrie. I mean, we just saw Ilya Samsonov go on waivers for the Leafs, and nobody claimed him. So, that happened at the end of December. And then Ryan Johnson, sent down, sent up. It was sort of just one of those paper transactions, but I know you've been talking about Ryan Johnson a lot and making sure that he can get in the lineup. We'll get into the lineup in part 2, but just the recent transactions, Jost got sent down, and they're spending a lot of money on Rochester now, which there was talk from ownership that they wanted to spend less money in Rochester for guys that are on NHL contracts. So like from the recent call-ups and guys being sent down to Rochester, just what have they been telling you with that story?
Yeah, like I'm glad they finally waived Comrie. No disrespect to Comrie, I'm just glad they're not doing 3 goalies. They could have sent, let's face it, they should, Levi being sent down would have been the easy move because there's no waivers, blah, blah, blah. He's inconsistent. But Comrie has clearly been the worst of the 3. I have no issue with that. I did not think he was going to get claimed. The Jost move, again, kind of obvious, right? Although, again, nitpicky, but the day before you waived him, he was the guy that stepped in as the 1C for Tage. Okay. I understand Jost needs to be in the lineup because of the way it was constructed. You didn't have to play him as the number 1 center. Right? It's dumb little things like that normally on a well-run organization, they don't get nitpicked, but because the Sabres are losing every benefit of the doubt that they had built up for the last year, it's going to get nitpicked. But yeah, he deserved, give Jost credit. He earned a spot here last year. Adams decided to re-sign him. Adams didn't have to give him $2 million, but he decided to. I don't think anyone saw once they brought back Jost, Girgensons, and Raposo, I think everyone kind of thought well, this doesn't make any sense. All 3 of those guys can't be in the lineup. They're not going to waive Girgensons or Raposo. I think the writing was on the wall. The Ryan Johnson paper move, again, that's just it was a paper move. It pissed me off. It pissed everybody off. I know it was just a paper move, but guess what? This team doesn't deserve to the benefit of the doubt. Anyone who jumped on the Sabres for that, good, because you have to start jumping on them because they don't deserve any benefit of the doubt right now. Aside from waiving Comrie, they have not made a difficult roster decision yet this year. Name one that they have. They scratched Johnson because, whatever. Sometimes they scratched Eric Johnson, Clifton, and I get that. That's cool. They waived Bryson. Okay, Ryan Johnson forced that move. Because if you send Ryan Johnson down, you're just telling everyone you're not serious about winning because he's one of your best defensemen. The goalies, you kept 3 because you could up until you could not anymore. So you had to get rid of one. Comrie was the easy stick. I know, you don't want to waive the veteran or whatever, but he was the worst goalie. He had to get sent down. Like, they have not made a tough roster decision. Olofsson is still here. Jorgensen is going to be here for the rest of the year. Oposo's hurt, which sucks for him because he was actually starting to play well. It just seems like Adams and Granato don't want to get their hands dirty, and unfortunately, you have to get your hands dirty. Like, Toronto, when Reeves and Klingberg struggled, I know there was an injuries involved, but this team was like, you know what? No, they're not working out. We can't have them be on our lineup every night. Buffalo, your signings have not worked out. Your players here are not working out. You have to make a move. Like, I don't know.
So you think it's a loyalty issue?
I don't even think it's a loyalty issue. I think it's just the messaging that Adams has said publicly versus the moves that they have made are not the same. Adams has said the playoffs are the expectation this year. And again, I gave him the benefit of the doubt in the offseason, and I will say I look like an idiot for doing that. But I do thought, he at least tried to shore up the defensive depth. I do think that there was not a lot of options out there for the veteran goalie market, so he's stayed status quo. But you were serious about making the playoffs, but then when push came to shove and things started to fall apart early, you did nothing. Your messaging publicly versus your actions don't line up to me. And again, this team's got no identity, and that's where we are. I mean, part 2, we'll talk about the upcoming schedule, and that'll be fine and dandy because they still have games to play. But overall, big picture, does it really matter?
Yeah, it's tough to look at right now, but like you mentioned, we'll get into that in part 2. We'll get to our Twitter polls as well. We'll get into the upcoming games, the standings, some of the player stats as well, and we'll get Austin's analytic of the week. So stay right here. Be right back on Sabres Semantics, proudly brought to you by J&L Flooring, right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network.
Last year, more homes canceled cable TV than ever before. Why? It's just too expensive. For half the price of cable, you can get Fubo TV and watch the live sports and TV you love. Try free at FuboTV.com.
J&L Flooring is Niagara's specialty flooring and design company. They take great pride and provide elite customer service and support. With a beautiful showroom, great pricing, and a wide variety of truly unique products, J&L Flooring is your specialty flooring and decor boutique shop. All of their products are environmentally friendly and responsibly produced so you can feel good about your flooring choices. Their goal is to build authentic relationships based on honesty and integrity that they foster with respect and authenticity. Offering a unique and wide range of quality products presented by a knowledgeable and patient team, they simplify the process to make your life easier and to make your home more beautiful. Visit them at 4424 Montrose Road in Niagara Falls or find out more at jnlflooring.com. If you think you can get a better deal anywhere else, you don't know Jack at J&L Flooring. In the Niagara region, Global Pet Foods is your destination for premium pet nutrition and caring expertise. Whether you've welcomed a new furry family member or need advice on top quality nutrition, their dedicated staff is ready to help. Discover why Global Pet Foods' lesser-known premium brands outshine the big corporate names. Their team's passion ensures your pet's health and vitality. Check out one of their locations today, 3643 Portage Road in Niagara Falls, 160 Highway 20 in Font Hill, or 400 Scott Street and 344 Glendale Avenue in St. Catharines. Global Pet Foods, where premium brands and caring staff make the difference.
Niagara Golf Lounge features 2 state-of-the-art indoor golf simulators, allowing you to play some of the world's best courses all year round. The perfect place to indulge all season long. Don't worry about getting thirsty while you play around with your friends. Their fully stocked bar offers a wide selection of drinks, appetizers, and a variety of meals are also available to enjoy before, during, or after you play. Grab a seat next to the fire in their comfortable sports lounge. Didn't bring your clubs? No problem. They have partnered with TaylorMade to offer you the best rental clubs. You won't want to miss their exclusive NFL and NHL giveaways for the Buffalo Sabres and Buffalo Bills. Located in the Best Western Plus Cairncroft Hotel, 6400 Lundy's Lane in Niagara Falls. Visit NiagaraGolfVacations.com to learn more and to reserve your golf bay today. The Niagara Golf Lounge, Niagara's home for golf and sport all year round.
Are you currently looking for work in the Niagara region? If so, you owe it to yourself to check out the services provided by the Niagara Employment Help Center located at 6100 Thoroldstone Road in Niagara Falls. Their many free services include a fully staffed resource area open to the public, resume and cover letter writing, local labor market information, job search strategies, assistance with clarifying employment, training and career goals, employment counseling and job search support, Better Jobs Ontario information and registration assistance, and you can check out their website at ehc.on.ca or call 905-358-0021 for more information. The Niagara Employment Help Center, helping people find work since 1983.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
Talking night in Buffalo. Hey, hey, here we go, the boys in blue, white, and gold. Hey, hey, here we go, make some noise, get in the zone. All for one and one for all, let's hear you from your heart and soul. And we will stand raising our hands, saying, let's go Buffalo, let's go Buffalo. We will be here till the end, saying, let's go Buffalo, let's go Buffalo.
Welcome back to part 2 of today's Sabres Semantics episode. Brandon Caputo and Austin Broder back with you on our Armchair GM Sports Network. It's proudly brought to you by J&L Flooring. If you think you get a better deal anywhere else, you don't know Jack. Contact their Niagara Falls location to be your quality flooring project today. Fubo TV is a proud partner of the Buffalo Sabres for Southern Ontario and the Niagara region. You can catch all the Sabres games all season long live on Fubo TV, available in Southern Ontario and the Niagara region. Our exclusive link for the best Fubo TV price is available up the description of this video and on all of our social media platforms. We post those on Sabres game days as well. And again, as I mentioned at the start of our first segment, Niagara Golf Vacations. If you want to go to free Sabres games for the rest of the year, all you got to do is spend $50 at the Niagara Golf Lounge located in the Best Western Cairncroft Hotel, and you will be entered to win tickets to the remaining Buffalo Sabres home games. So go check them out as well. Austin, we'll start off the second segment today with we'll quickly touch on the Twitter polls that we put up over the last week or so. Kind of discussed it in part 1, and we'll kind of lead off into it here for what you wanted to discuss about it. What is the biggest issue with the Buffalo Sabres power play right now? Again, you can follow us at Sabres Semantics for all of our Twitter polls and all of our updates regarding our Sabres shows here on the network. We put 3 options there: personnel, strategy, or a little bit of both. And a little bit of both took it with 65.2. Strategy was second at 21.7, and personnel was 13%. Austin, this was a poll that you wanted to go up there, so I'll kind of let you discuss that.
Yeah, and I think I wanted to see if people's opinions, I guess, match mine, because I don't think it's a personnel issue. I guess maybe you can do some minor tweaks. I guess. I don't think Jeff Skinner needs to be on your top power play unit, but I think I've also been saying that for years. Their strategy sucks. Their strategy straight up sucks. Like, it's not creative. They don't generate a lot of chances. They don't move. They work a lot of east to west. They don't work a lot of, low to high, high to low. But guess what? If you work low to high, it can open up some guys in the slot. It can open up some of those east-west chances. And it just seems like I see a lot of discourse on Twitter about they should have kept Mike Pekka. Matt Ellis is not fit to run the power play. And you know what? Matt Ellis has shown he's not fit to run the power play. I will say this: it's not because of the style of player that Matt Ellis was, because, if your solution is Mike Pekka, it's not like Mike Pekka was a power play guru. He was a very good two-way defensive forward. The whole Mike Pekka thing makes me laugh because he is probably a very good coach. I don't think if Mike Pekka is here instead of Matt Ellis, their power play is all of a sudden the best in the league. I think it's probably better because I don't think Matt Ellis is a good coach anymore. So there's but things like that, people start to lash out at weird things like that when there's not any answers, right? And there's no answers coming, because I know it's not normal to fire an assistant halfway through the NHL season, but come on. Show that you're alive, that you have a pulse, that you care. Granato saying, I'm going to start having more influence on the power play. Dude, you're the head coach. You have influence on the power play no matter what. I know you defer to your assistants, but you're the head coach. You're just telling me you were just cool, not having any input. You weren't in on those meetings. You didn't have any say. No one buys that. To me, it was their strategy. And a significant change in strategy has to come from either the head coach says, dude, you change this or you're gone, or you make the coaching change. You know what I mean? You either say, hey, change this or you're fired, or you fire the guy. Like, it's not working. And as I said, like, there's people on Twitter who will tweet about it. It has been for a calendar year, over 365 days now, over 82 games. Like, it's been terrible. So to me, I wanted to see if everyone's opinions match mine. To me, I think it's probably 95% strategy, 5% personnel, but I was just curious.
Yeah, and again, like, firing an assistant coach, is that really, a move that is earth-shattering? Like, I know it would help, but, like, I don't think it's gonna. If you fire a guy, it's gonna be completely, a hard decision. I don't see a problem with firing an assistant coach in the middle of the year. We see it happen on other teams. Like, if power play's not working, or if it's somebody's terrible on the penalty kill. I mean, it's an assistant coach.
Yeah, like, again, is it an earth-shattering move? No, but it's a move. Like, it's something, right? Like, who was it the Oilers when they fired Woodcroft? They brought in someone to help with the power play, Brad Richards. I think it was after they fired Woodcroft, though. So, like, I know, like,
they fired his assistant too.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like, I always, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's sure. Is it going to make a world of difference? No, because I do think the head coach has a big say on his power play as well. That's where I think the issue is. But you know what? At least it looks like you're trying to do something, right? Like,
yeah.
Special teams has been an issue for 2 years for the Sabres. The last 2 seasons. It's what sunk them last year, and it's not the only thing sinking them this year, but if you had a good power play, it would at least be making a difference. So I don't know. Like I said, it would probably be an empty calorie move, but at least it's a move.
Our second poll today is, what is most likely to happen for the Sabres before the end of the season, if any at all? Head coaching change. I guess you could put assistant coach change in there as well. General manager change, significant acquisition, or a significant player traded. Head coaching change was the consensus there, 53.3%. Second place was a significant player traded. Again, who that would be, I'm not sure about that. And then a significant acquisition was 6.7%, and 0% was a GM change for Kevin Adams. So, Austin, what do you think of the results there?
I think the 0% GM change makes sense. Like, again, as much as I've been ragging on the front office, I do think Adams has done a solid job and deserves a little bit more time and he deserves criticism. Don't get me wrong. He definitely deserves criticism. I think people realize he's probably not going anywhere. Coaching change makes the most sense. It's the easiest, and I'm not advocating for Gennaro to lose his job. But as always, you cover a team in Niagara that has had 4 head coaches in the last 2 years. Right? Like, the coaching change, sadly, is the easiest move to make. Now, do I think it's going to happen in season? Probably not. Like you said, a significant player traded. I guess it depends on what your idea of a significant player. Like, are we talking, like, Tage isn't going anywhere, Cousins isn't going anywhere, Peterka is not going anywhere, I bet you Quinn's not going anywhere, Dolly and Power are not going anywhere. So, like, Skinner can't go anywhere, and he's actually playing well offensively. So are we talking, like, Peyton Krebs? I love Peyton Krebs. He's not a significant player. Greenway, you just traded for him again, not a significant player, and I think he's one of the players that is actually performing well. Clifton, you just got, probably not trading him because GMs don't really trade guys that they just signed to a 3-year deal a couple months ago. Like, is Olsen a significant player? You know what I mean? Like, looking at the players that realistically could move, there are no significant players on the team that can move. Now, prospects, we have yet to see Kevin Adams even part with a prospect in a trade. Is that on the table? I think it should be. We're seeing some problems with the LA Kings. They just waived Thomas Bjornfot to get Brant Clark up here. Like, LA had LA had the best prospect pool as voted by a lot of smart people.
For a long
you run
time.
Out of room for all those players, right? Eventually you just run out of room for all those players. Buffalo does not have room for all their top prospects. That is just a fact. I think a lot of them are good. Yuri Kulich is fantastic. Savoy is very good. Noah Osland is having a fantastic World Junior. All very good players. Isaac Rosen is having a very good season in the AHL.
Yeah.
There's no room for all of them.
You just signed all these guys to long-term extensions, your whole core. I mean, that's 3 or 4 guys that you signed to extensions. Where are they all going to play if you want to bring up these prospects, right? Like, my thing is, like, the only move they made in the last year of trading a prospect, they traded, a guy that we were both fond of in Josh Bloom to Vancouver for Riley Stillman. So, like, that was the only time that they've traded a prospect in the last year. And again, it was for Riley Stillman, who, was a bottom pair defenseman that they needed at the time.
Yeah.
But like, if moving Josh Bloom is the only move that you're gonna make with the prospect pool, like where are the rest of these guys gonna play? And I love Josh Bloom. We covered him in the OHL. Loved watching him play, but there was just nowhere for him to go, and he's got more opportunity in Vancouver.
I love Josh Bloom too. I love Josh Bloom too, like you, and I agree. But when you really think about it, and this is no disrespect to Josh Bloom, he is a very good OHL player. He's up in the pros now, playing in the ECHL. But when you looked at the prospect pool, the reason he was moved is because at the time he was not considered one of their top prospects, right? So like even though he was moved as a prospect, Adams hasn't made a significant subtraction from this prospect pool to make the team better now, right? Like he hasn't yet. And he did not need to up until potentially this offseason because last year there was no reason to trade, Matt Savoy for Jacob Chikrin. Like, you know what I mean? Because apparently that's what it was going to take, was one of those top prospects. Looking back, would you have done that? I mean, probably. You know what I mean? Like, but hindsight's always 20/20, so I'm not going to rag on him for that because at the time I probably wouldn't have either. But now going forward, it's like, all right, you have to make a decision. You just said there's not enough room for all these prospects. Identify the ones you do have room for. Identify the ones that other teams value, and go make a significant move. Now, is that going to happen in season? Probably not, because the team's just not even close to making the playoffs. But like,
and to counteract that,
every level has failed. Every level has failed. The GM, the coach. Also, that's the theme of, for me, that's the theme of this podcast that I will keep hammering home, is every level of this organization has failed. And I will hand up. I look like an idiot because I thought Adams had a great offseason. Turns out he didn't. I thought the team was going to regress a little bit, but the top guys were still going to play very good. They're not playing very good. I thought Don Granato, again, was a good player development coach who could at least get this team to the playoffs. Now it's not even looking like he can get this team to the playoffs. So I was wrong on all three levels, just like this team's been wrong on all three levels.
And again, I'm not asking for them to torch it to the ground like Tampa did with all of their picks and prospects. I mean, in the last 5 years, would I take 2 cups to trade all my prospects? Probably. But you look at what Tampa's doing right now, and you look at what their lineup has been. You can tell that this is the product of trading away all your picks and prospects for the last 5 years. But again, Tampa had such a great system that Yzerman had overloaded the shelves of prospects and picks, that he made the decision that, okay, not all these guys are going to play, so we better make moves now to help our team now to try to win these cups now. And now they are lacking prospects, but they did what they had to do at the time over the last 4 or 5 years of trading away those guys, because they're just, at the end of the day, what are you going to have a 10th overall pick playing fourth line? Like, I don't know if you really want that.
Yeah.
So
no, and not every 10th overall has the skill set to adapt their game to be a bottom 6 player, right? Like, that is also where you have to look at it. It's like, as much as I love Matt Savoy, his skill set doesn't fit a bottom 6 role. If he's not a top 6 on the Sabres, does he really fit here? And that's not a knock on Matt Savoy at all. He's a fantastic player. He's a fantastic offensive creator. That's just a product of, like, there's no room. Like, I'm also not advocating that he needs to be traded right now either. Don't get me wrong, if he's the difference between making a drastic move to improve this team, no prospect for Buffalo should be off the table. There are a few that I would like to be off the table, starting at the top with Yuri Kulik. I would like him to be off the table, but at the same time, if the right move comes, I have no issues parting with him. Again, to me, he's a personal favorite of mine. He is one that I would personally not like to see traded. But at the same time, Buffalo, you are not in a position to turn down any move right now for your prospects, because Zach Benson is he's not even he is a prospect because he's only 18, but he's a true blue NHL player. He made it as an 18-year-old. He's going to be very good. Okay.
Paterka?
That takes up a spot in your top 9. Paterka, Quinn, Middlestad's future, I don't know what it holds. I wouldn't be surprised if they give him a contract extension, because at 5-on-5, he's been their best player for about a year now.
He's leading the team in points.
Yeah, so we are now at that conversation where there is not enough room for all these prospects. Again, I'm not saying I know a trade piece that you should go out and identify, because I don't. I don't know what this team's lacking, because right now their good players aren't playing good. And you have a number 1 center in Tage Thompson. You're not going to go out and acquire a number 1 center. Like, that's where it's like, find what you need to make this team better. Is that a bona fide veteran goalie to pair with Devin Levi? Okay. Go find a way to get one then. But that does mean you got to move UPL, which I would have no problem with. Do you need another top 4 defenseman? Because Darlene, Power, those are 2 in your top 4. You have to look at yourself. Is Yoki Haru a long-term fit here? Probably not. Okay, so there is an opening in the top 4 there. go get a. I don't know. Like, who find this year's Chikrin and go get him then. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Barring a significant philosophy change, though, I just don't see any of the things that we're talking about happening. At least not this year. Maybe in the summer we'll see something different. But yeah, like we're on the verge of another top 12 pick, and to me, as a prospects guy who has lived for that stuff, I'm tired of it. What are we going to add? Another top 10 prospect to this pool that you and I just spent the last 5 minutes talking about how there's just not room for those guys here anymore. Like, at some point, something's got to change. I think the GM hopefully is smart enough to know that. We'll see, because now I think the pressure, no disrespect to Granato, to me the microscope is firmly on the players and the GM, because to me, if this goes south, Granato's the first one to go, and I think he probably should go if this continues to go south. But I also don't think that's happening until the offseason. So, like, we're stuck in that loop here where this team is either so delusional that they think they're going to get out of it, or they're perfectly happy just wasting the rest of the season and trying to retool for next year. Neither option is good, but I do think that some part of me, like some part of this front office and coaching staff, thinks that this team is good enough to snap out of this and make a push.
Yeah, like unless they're giving us a complete smokescreen, what the messaging that you've talked about and what they've told us on a weekly basis here, they're not making any significant moves, so don't expect there to be massive changes here and fireworks to be happening up at the upcoming NHL trade deadline.
No. And like, we'll get into let's get into the future games, but realistically, how many games in a row? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Of their next 11 games, how many do they have to win for you to be back in on this season? Not realistically. How many do they actually have to win for you to say, you know what, my interest is back? To me, it's 8 out of 11, and I do not see that happening.
And I mean, other than maybe Tampa Bay and maybe LA, all these games should be very winnable. You look at their upcoming opponents, Montreal, Pittsburgh, who has shown that they can give up many goals on a nightly basis. Jari's, off and on. Kraken are a team that's beatable. The Senators are surely beatable, even though they just lost to them. The Canucks are beatable. The Sharks are... The Sharks and Blackhawks, back-to-back games, two of the worst teams in the Western Conference, going to both be top 5 teams in the upcoming NHL draft. You got to win those 2 games for me. Tampa, then you go out west. You go to Anaheim, LA, and San Jose. Yeah, you go out west. It's a tough trip, but you play San Jose again. So you play San Jose twice. You play Anaheim. Like, other than Tampa Bay and LA, if they don't win a lot, at least 50% of these games, then I'm not going to have any faith in them going forward for the rest of the season. And if significant changes aren't made, then it's just hard to think that anything positive is going to happen the rest of the year, because you should beat 80% of these teams, because it is one of the easiest stretches they've had all year.
That's what I'm saying. Like, realistically, little guest appearance here from my daughter. Realistically, they have to win 8 out of 11. Do I actually see that happening? 0% chance. But if they win 8 out of 11, I'll be like, okay, my interest is at least peaked.
And yeah, I mean that's their January schedule. I mean, that's it right there. That's your stretch of games that is either going to have you in or out of the playoffs. And I'll pull up the standings right now. Buffalo's.
What's sad is the Ottawa game and the Columbus game should have been a part of that.
Those are the 2 teams you're ahead of in the conference right now, and you just lost them. Like, you gave up 9 to Columbus. I know you came back with a good game against Toronto, but then the Ottawa game is just inexcusable. I'm sorry, you can't lose to Ottawa.
No.
And right now, I mean, they're slipping behind right now. And I mean, the teams that they're going to have to catch: Pittsburgh, New Jersey, Tampa Bay. Do we truly believe that they're better than any of those teams right now? Pittsburgh can be really off and on, but when they're on and Buffalo's on, like, I don't know. New Jersey's up and down. Their goaltending is horrific. Detroit goaltending is a disaster right now. So, like, these are teams that you would expect them to be better than, but with the results that they're showing this year, it's just hard to give them any sort of faith.
Yeah, like I said, like, if they win 8 out of the next 11, I'll be like, okay, like, at least my interest in the season is back on. But you just said it. Like, realistically, they have yet to show that they can consistently beat teams that are worse than them. So even though realistically, the Pittsburghs, the Seattles, those teams are right in their wheelhouse, they should be competitive. They should have a good shot at winning those games. But we can't sit here and say that we have faith that they'll actually do it, which is a huge problem.
Yep.
Like, mean, we'll get into it here quick. Like you talked about, like my analytics. Well, these aren't even really my analytics. These are just straight up numbers from Natural Stat Trick. 2022, 2023, the Sabres were generating 2.74 expected goals for per 60 minutes. They were scoring 2.96 goals per 60 minutes. So again, the Sabres have always been a team that they have good shooters, they have good finishers, they will score above their expected goals. This year, their expected goals and goals for per 60 minutes are down. They're generating 2.61 goals or expected goals per 60 minutes. So they're generating way less, not way less, but less. And they're scoring 2.74. So they're scoring almost a quarter of a goal less per game, which is at 5-on-5, which is a big deal. And they're generating less per game at 5-on-5, which is a big deal. Like they're still scoring above expected because they have a talented shooting team, but their offensive system has just completely derailed them. Their defense has derailed them. Like you just said, upcoming stretch here, they deserve no positivity. So that's why, like I said last podcast, I'm going to try and be positive. I'm going to look like an idiot. I look like an idiot for saying that because now I'm back to being negative, but that's what this team does to me. It's what this team does to you. It's what this team does to its fan base.
No New Year's resolutions for you?
No, my New Year's resolution is Sabres have to win 8 games in January to get me back on to even enjoying watching them play. I will still watch them play because I am a fan of this team. But I used to look forward to it this year up until the Ottawa game. The Ottawa game on New Year's Eve was really just like I don't know why it was a breaking point for me, but it was a breaking point for me. I don't really have any rhyme or reason as to why that game was, but that game I was just sitting here and I was like, as soon as Castleck, whoever scored the 4th goal at the end of the second period, as soon as that went in, I was like, I'm done. So yeah, I mean, we can preview we could talk about the Montreal, Pittsburgh, Seattle game coming up the next 3 weeks, but in the grand scheme of things, you have to have a flawless month in order to get this thing back on track, and there's just no reason to believe that it's possible. Maybe in our next podcast I'll look like an idiot again. I will happily look like an idiot in our next podcast, but don't really get the sense that I'm going to look like an idiot.
And we'll just quickly touch on the lines before we get out of here. Skinner, Thompson, Tuck is back being the top line again. Skinner healthy and Tuck healthy. Tage back at center now after coming back slowly from his injury, playing a little bit of wing. Peterka, Cousins, Quinn as your second line. Greenway, Middlestat, Benson as the third line. Gergensons, Krebs, Eric Robinson has somehow gotten the lineup. And Okposo's going to be out for a couple weeks here, so they're without their captain for at least till, I think it was retroactive January 9th, at least. So the captain's going to be out of the lineup for the Sabres, and again, he's fourth liner anyway, but I know he still brings a presence out there as the captain. So the forward lines right now, Austin, is this, if they're going to stick with their guns and they're not going to change anything, is this what you're okay with for the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, no, like I said earlier in the show, this forward group, I am fine with. The 12 forwards, it's probably the best construction that they can have with their roster. Like I said, the top line just has to start producing.
And as for the defense and the power play, Darlene Samuelson, they love putting that together again.
They're actually broken up.
Oh, they got broken up now? Okay.
Yeah, Darlene's with Yoki Haru.
Okay, so
at least that's according to the practice.
Okay, so update me on the D lines there, because it might be.
Yeah, so they had Eric Johnson in power, Darlene Yoki Haru, and then they had Clifton, Ryan Johnson, and Samuelson rotating.
Okay, and was the
We
top?
finally saw some changes there.
And was the top power play Skinner, Middlestat, Tuck, Tage, and Owen Power?
Yeah, as far as I saw, power play lines remained the same.
Okay, so Owen Power on the top power play. How do you feel about that over Darlene to try to spread it out, I guess?
I mean, look, you got to try something. Owen Power is perfectly capable of running a top power play. He's done it everywhere he's gone.
See, even your daughter's crying about the Sabres right now.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think it's smart? I don't know. Darlene at his best should be your top power play unit, but you have to change something up. And if that's your change, at least you're not, at least there's not a significant drop off. Owen Power is perfectly capable of it. Adding Darlene to power play 2 gives it a nice boost.
And Olofsson, thoughts on, he's supposed to be the power play guy.
I already he should be gone soon. He should. If he's not no disrespect to him, he started to play really well, but at some point he's not a fit, and he's not a fit anymore. Quinn's back. We already knew when Quinn came back, Olofsson was useless, and we're here now.
before we get out, thoughts on Kulik over at the World Juniors?
Oh, Kulik was fantastic, but two guys that I really want to draw. Well, three. The two Swedes, Noah Ostlund and Anton Wahlberg, playing really well. Maxim Sturback from Slovakia, he had a fantastic tournament. His tournament got cut short, but he's a lot of fun to watch on defense. He can go back there next year for Slovakia if he's, depending on what his status is at Michigan State. But he's a ton of fun to watch. So those three guys are guys I wanted to highlight. Sucks for Savoy to have a disappointing tournament with Canada. Ratzlaff never got to play, but he's eligible to play next year. So I'm guessing he'll be a significant part of Canada's plans in the future.
Yeah, and again, it's been fun to watch other than Canada losing with 11 seconds left, but it is what it is. It'll be an exciting end to the tournament at least, but at least the Sabres prospects, again, where they're going to play, who knows, but at least they have some representation there, and they're showcasing that there is a lot of depth at this organization, but again, you're going to at some point have to turn that depth into something that you're going to need to use to get you over the top into a playoff team and a deep playoff team at some point, and I think that's what we've been kind of talking about today, and just kind of an honest discussion where we think this team is as we begin 2024.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk soon again, and hopefully we'll have some different opinions here, but I mean, let's be honest, we got to end this soon because I can keep going, and
yeah,
I'm getting depressed.
That's good. Hopefully you guys enjoyed another episode of Sabres Semantics, and again, a little bit different tone, but there was a lot of stuff we had to address today. We hadn't talked in a couple of weeks, so kicking off 2024 with a bang. We'll see if the Sabres can do that with their upcoming games. So that's going to wrap up another episode of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, proudly brought to you by J&L Flooring. For Austin Brodheim, my name is Brandon Caputo. Make sure you're giving us some love on the video version of the podcast, and as well if you're listening to us today on demand in audio. And you can give us some love on Twitter by following us at Sabres Semantics and at Armchair GM Pod. So until next time, we'll talk to you again very soon.
See you guys.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.